It began with silence. Not the kind you hear, but the kind you feel. The kind that settles after a storm, when everything that once roared is suddenly still. Alex Murdaugh sat alone in a cold courtroom, his eyes fixed on the floor. The sound of the gavel had faded, but its echo lingered in his mind. 2 consecutive life sentences. No parole, no escape, just silence. Once, he was the man people turned to for justice. Now, he was the man justice had turned against. And as the doors of the courthouse closed behind him, something greater than a man had fallen, an entire dynasty had crumbled, the empire that vanished. For nearly a century, the name Murdaugh meant power. It meant respect, wealth, and control. In the low country of South Carolina, that name could open any door or quietly close one. But power has a strange way of hiding the truth. And when the curtain finally fell, the world saw what had been hidden beneath greed, betrayal, and a lifetime of lies. The family's 1,700-acre estate, Moselle, once the heart of their legacy, now stood deserted. The grass grew tall where children once played. The kennels were empty. The house once filled with laughter was now a monument to silence. Reporters described Moselle as a graveyard of secrets. Even the wind there seemed to whisper a warning. Everything built on deceit must one day come undone. The son who remained. After the trial, the cameras turned to Buster Murdaugh, the last surviving member of the immediate family. He was young, quiet, and subtly carrying a legacy he never asked for. He sat through the trial every day, his face unreadable. But behind his stillness was pain, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that rewrites who you are. When asked about his father, he said little. How could he? How do you speak of a man you loved, but can no longer understand? Everywhere Buster went, the name followed him like a shadow. Some whispered pity, others whispered judgment. But the truth is, Buster became the living reminder of what the Murdaughs once were and what they had lost. Inside the mind of Alex Murdaugh. Behind bars, Alex Murdaugh became both an enigma and an obsession. He spoke calmly in interviews, as if still trying to control the story. He denied everything: the murders, the lies, the crimes. But investigators had already uncovered a trail that painted a different picture. Dozens of stolen settlements, hidden accounts, millions of dollars that had quietly vanished over the years. The man who once fought for justice had been stealing from the very people he promised to protect. Experts called it a perfect storm of ego, addiction, and privilege. He lived in a world where consequences rarely reached him. But when the walls began to close in, Alex did what he had always done. He tried to outsmart the truth. Only this time, the truth was smarter. The ghost that wouldn't stay buried. The Murdaugh case didn't end with the trial. It opened the door to new questions and old ghosts. Investigators reopened the death of Stephen Smith, a teenager found dead under suspicious circumstances years earlier. They re-examined the mysterious fall of Gloria Satterfield, the Murdaugh's longtime housekeeper, whose insurance payout had allegedly been stolen. Every time a new headline appeared, the same chilling question returned. How much did this family hide? It was no longer about one man's crimes. It was about a culture of power, one that had ruled unchallenged for decades. The Murdaugh story had become a symbol of what happens when privilege is left unchecked, and when truth takes too long to be heard. The trial that shook America. Millions watched the Murdaugh trial live. Every moment from the opening statement to the final verdict was broadcast to a world hungry for answers. It wasn't just a case anymore. It was a story about justice and how far it has to reach when the powerful fall. In the courtroom, witnesses described the evidence that shattered Alex's defense. Gunshot residue on his clothing, GPS data that placed into kennels, and a haunting video recorded by Paul, his son, just moments before the murders. The voice in the background was unmistakable. It was Alex's. The revelation changed everything. The courtroom went still, and in that silence, the illusion of innocence finally broke. Behind the bars, in prison, Alex Murdaugh tried to rebuild control the only way he knew how, with words. He filed appeals, wrote letters, gave interviews. Each time, his tone was the same: calm, deliberate, unwavering. But those who had seen his rise and fall said the same thing. He wasn't seeking forgiveness. He was seeking relevance. Because for men like Alex, obscurity is a final punishment, and the silence of a prison cell is louder than any courtroom. The aftermath. The world has moved on from the Murdaughs, but the echoes remain. Their once proud name now appears in documentaries, podcasts, and late-night discussions about corruption and justice. Moselle was sold, stripped of its memories. The law firm erased their name from the front door. And in the small towns of South Carolina, people still shake their heads when they speak of the family that once ruled everything. It's said that every story leaves something behind: a lesson, a warning, a scar. The Murdaugh saga left all three. It taught that power without accountability corrodes everything it touches. That truth, though buried, always claws its way back to the surface. And that no legacy, no matter how strong, can survive when built on deception. The final silence. Years later, the Murdaugh name still echoes like a ghost in the Low Country. Some say Moselle feels alive at night, that the wind moves through its empty halls like it's searching for something lost. Others say it's just a land remembering. For Alex, there are no more arguments to win, no more cases to close. Only time and silence. He once believed he could control every story, that his name, his power, his wealth would protect him forever. But in the end, it was none of those things that remained. Only the truth. And the truth doesn't fade. It waits. It whispers. And it reminds us all that even the mighty can fall, and even the fallen can never escape what they've done. Because justice is patient, and the truth always finds its voice. This is the Dark Diaries, where hidden truths are being uncovered. Kindly like and subscribe for more.